Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Family Matters. We're keeping it local for a change. As you'll know, I've got guests from all around the world, but we're keeping this one local, and it's with one of our Family First favourite groups that we work and cooperate with. It's a new face perhaps. It's the new president of New Zealand's Voice for Life, or VFL, Lydia Posthuma. So Lydia, welcome along.
Thank you, Simon.
And I just realised I've said your surname wrong, just like that. Posthuma. Oh, I can't believe it. You have full permission now to Okanono or something for me, but I'm absolutely hopeless. But look, Voice for Life is one of the most amazing organisations in New Zealand, and you have recently been elected its president. So tell us about Voice for Life, because there'll be some viewers here who may not be familiar with the work and advocacy that you lead.
Yes, so Voice for Life is New Zealand's largest and oldest pro-life organisation. So we've been running for, I think it's over 50 years now. And we've got branches all over the country. So it's very much a grassroots kind of organisation. We work to do advocacy against abortion and euthanasia. So we're a pro-life organisation, and we've been involved, I guess, in different political campaigns, but also, getting into different things and working on different projects.
You quietly undersell yourself already. You guys are amazing in the advocacy you lead, and I know Family First cooperates quite closely with you, but you have been at the forefront, or VFL, Voice of Life, has been at the forefront of many of the campaigns over recent years, of course, around abortion. We've got issues around euthanasia too. Just tell people a little bit about the structure you have. Obviously, you're the president. Yeah, just give us a sense of you taking over the role, but you have various chapters and so forth. You're not like Family First, which is just one organisation. You have branches. Just give our listeners a bit of a sense of how you operate.
Yeah, so we have 28 branches, I think it is now, around the country. And each of those branches has their own committee, but then also their own members. And so each of those branches will do different events in the local community. So I'm also on the Auckland committee, and we do regular movie nights and pre-meetings and what else do we do? We've organised a training day last year, different training days at different times, different ways to network and connect with the local community. And branches around the country are doing those similar kind of things in their own places, different outreach things.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, as I say, you've been very much involved in not only supporting people through some difficult decisions, particularly at the start of life, but I know a lot of your political advocacy. But before we move on to that, tell us a little bit about yourself. As I say, you're the new president. It's only been a good few months. What are your priorities, Madam President?
Yes. I guess just trying to understand what the current landscape is for the pro-life movement. Now that's we're not in a political kind of place that we were maybe a few years ago. I've been involved in pro-life stuff for a number of years, and through the euthanasia changes in law and the abortion law changes and different campaigns that, so I've done a lot of that kind of political stuff in the past, and now I guess it's just kind of looking to where we can continue engaging in conversations with the public, changing public perception, and so we've got some exciting stuff coming up around that this year too.
I mean, what is your reflection? God, this sounds like such a formal interview. It's funny for viewers, they need to know I have actually known Lydia for years and immense respect for the work you lead, so it's sounding all very formal at the moment, but I mean, what's your sort of feeling on the pro-life space here in New Zealand, and perhaps to the extent you want to contrast it from what we're seeing overseas? Because we've seen, to me, the US, for example, and elsewhere, we're seeing actually some wins for a change, which is a bit unusual for New Zealanders. So yeah, what's your view of the landscape at the moment?
Well, I personally think it takes a long time to change a law in a bad way, but also takes a long time to change it back in a good way. And so, different countries are at different places on that kind of spectrum. This is my view anyway. And the US has seen some fantastic wins. My sister's actually was just over at the March for Life in America just a couple of days ago.
I'm jealous. It looked amazing. I mean, the president did a message. J.D. Vance was there, the Speaker of the House, Ben Carson, who wrote Gifted Hands, that amazing neurosurgeon. Lots of senators. Was it the Florida guy's name? DeSantis. I mean, gosh, New Zealand MPs and others, take a cue. It's good to turn out to these marches.
Exactly. I think she preferred the friendly vibe of the New Zealand march. She was like, we're probably a lot more, I don't know, just like a one big happy family kind of. Not that it was disunity, but just different perspective from the chats that I've had with her anyway since then. So, but yeah, different countries are at different places, and it's fantastic to see what's happening in the US. But I think also in New Zealand, there's a lot of things that we can do, and we're not in the greatest place with our laws. We've got some pretty serious laws, but I think we shouldn't lose hope.
No, for me, you never lose hope on these things. Firstly, we're on the side of right, and yeah, you just have to work with the political, winds of change. I mean, obviously, it's been a pretty bad few years, if I could put it that way. We obviously have this incredibly, if not one of the most extreme, abortion laws in New Zealand, and then recently we're having a review of our euthanasia laws. But maybe we could just pick up on each of those. I mean, you mentioned a bit earlier, change politically, and I'd agree with you, does not often come quickly. So, I mean, from Voice for Life's perspective, I mean, what are some of the hopes or priorities around what New Zealand might begin doing in the abortion space at the moment?
I think concerns that I have are kind of around the freedom of conscience, both around abortion and euthanasia for medical professionals. So what can we do around that? Abortion is our laws are very, very loose. And so seeing them tightened a little bit, or seeing, like the babies born alive, being able to have life-saving treatment would be something that would be really important. Some of those kind of changes, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me it's about small changes. I mean, there'll be those viewing who just want to see a complete 180, that everything just changes overnight. My own view, Lydia, is that won't happen. I think the first step is for people to, firstly, two steps. One is that understanding, and you referenced that a little bit earlier. People need to understand the reality of abortion. They need to get past a lot of the rhetoric that's out there, the slogans. The second side is that actually, and I love what you just said, that the laws here in New Zealand are loose. And I've often said to even the pro-abortion people I know, it's like, even if you're pro-abortion, you must see the glaring gap. So even something as simple as reporting, very limited information comes out. As you say, the conscience rights. There was a court case, was it last year or the year before, where health professionals had their conscience rights overridden when it comes to abortion. You go, well, how is that right for a liberal democracy? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think those are some of the areas we can advocate into. But I suppose my view is, someone who reflects the work you do in Voice for Life, it's that advocacy which changes hearts and mind. And what do you say, 28 chapters across the country?
That's true, yes. And so we're working with some different projects at the moment where we're looking to, I guess, reach the public more and engage on the topic of abortion, which probably won't be, necessarily an easy topic. It's never, fun. It's like, abortion.
With your experience, you're a young woman. And I think that's really important to underline. I mean, everyone can see that, but it's very easy for the pro-abortion lobby to pick on, men have opinions, but you're a young woman who feels this cause deeply, and of course now leads. But from your experience, I mean, how do you broach these conversations with people? What's been some of the most effective ways to actually talk about the humanity of the child, for example?
I think, looking at it from why people really object to it, they think that we're hateful people or that we really don't care. And so helping them understand that we do care, and the reason that we are opposed to abortion is not just for the baby, but also because we care about the mother and the pain and the hurt that the mother experiences as a result of having an abortion. And that so often mothers have abortions because they feel like they have no other options or no choice, or no support around them. So I actually do a lot of community workshops where I teach women how to make their own cleaning products and stuff, and then use that as an opportunity to talk about pregnancy centres, raise money for our local pregnancy centre. And that's been really interesting because it's not like, it's a kind of a subtle way to start a conversation with a lot of women in the community, but it's been a way that I've really enjoyed.
Look, not that I'm doing such workshops, but I've often found my own well, actually not that much limited experience now that I say it, that the experience is just that gentle conversation, often just breaking down the perceptions. As you say, the various pregnancy centres and other support networks that the likes for Voice for Life and other groups support. One of the main attacks at times is all that a Voice for Life or a Family First cares about is the unborn child. You go, no, we actually do a lot of work and support to support young mums or older mums too, for that matter.
Exactly.
So in terms though of, I suppose it's the other end of life. You mentioned euthanasia. We've obviously had a euthanasia law passed, again, one of the most liberal in the world, and now we have a review. And the Ministry of Health has come out with a number of recommendations. But you and I were talking offline, there's quite a few egregious ones, and I just wondered if you wanted to, highlight a few of those for viewers.
Yes, I mean, you're very well versed with all of these as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm just putting the pressure on you. It's not a test.
Yeah. See how much I've been reading recently. No, but there's like the freedom of conscience. Obviously, we want our doctors to have a choice not to need to kill somebody, for lack of a better word. We also are concerned about the potential changes that would make it legal for doctors to start talking to their patients about it. So at the moment, a patient needs to raise it. I can believe that's how it is still anyway. The patient first needs to raise the topic of euthanasia before they're allowed it, whereas the law proposes to change the proposed changes. Anyway.
Proposed change. Yeah, no. We're gonna have all the grammarians now messaging in. I get this if I write or say things wrong. I get the grammarians chasing me up. So brace.
Anyway, so the proposed changes would then make it that the doctors could raise that topic, and also the Ministry of Health could publicise it and advertise it, which I just think is really risky, because people who are facing like a terminal illness, want that support and don't want to feel like a burden on society. We don't want them to feel like their best option is euthanasia. So, yeah, I think it's really important.
Well, you shared with me the other day an Official Information Act. Actually, another group, Right to Life, had sourced it, but you shared it with me. The amount of money that a very small number of doctors are making in they call it assisted dying, but it's the assisted suicide and euthanasia space. I don't know about you, but I've been struck by how much money's been spent to fully fund euthanasia, the early termination of New Zealanders, and yet palliative care in New Zealand is woefully underfunded.
It's pretty horrific, eh? The amount of fundraising that an organisation like Hospice needs to do in order to continue running, and they do such fantastic work, and I'm sure so many of the listeners here have had a personal experience, with them as well, and yet, doctors are receiving, what was like 114,000, I think, was the doctor that received the most funding for performing euthanasias.
Yeah, phenomenal amount of money. I suspect, I can't prove this yet, I suspect that doesn't include all the travel costs and everything else on top of it. I mean, for me, it's the incongruous nature between a fully funded death service, but as you say, the hospices around the country have to do their bake sales and run their second-hand stores to try and get by. And then, of course, the ministry, and you touched on it, is now wanting to force hospices, for example, to have euthanasia on site. I mean, the irony, maybe that's the subtle way to put it, the irony of an argument of choice, and yet these hospices are not going to be allowed any choice.
That's true. We live in a very free country, don't we?
We do. Well, one of the things that struck me, Lydia, is those inconsistencies, and I suppose it's one of the core messages in the euthanasia review space, is you can't talk about choice, as in I want to choose to end my life, and yet force doctors, nurses, hospices, retirement villages to participate. But that's exactly what they're looking to do. So I assume that's going to be a bit of advocacy for Voice for Life. I know it will be for Family First. I mean, how do you find the balance with Voice for Life? Because you've got the start of life issues, obviously the unborn child, and the end of life. Would it be right to say that you primarily focus into the whole, obviously, unborn child side?
I think so. I think once the changes, the laws happened, there's the whole pro-life movement, I think, has been like, what do we do and what can we do? Because euthanasia is a hard thing to combat. Like, you don't, where do you start, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so I think there's a lot of work that we need to do in that area. But at the moment, we've got some active projects that we're working on in the abortion sense. So that is kind of what we're focusing on. I don't know if you've heard of the My Buddy campaign, which is focusing on like men and abortion and stuff like that.
No.
So,
sorry to interrupt. I haven't actually heard. My Buddy, did you say?
Yeah. So it's when you look at research worldwide, there's a lot of research that's gone into like the fathers of children killed by abortion. And fathers don't always have a choice in that decision, and also obviously are affected by it. And so we're trying to provide support to men who have lost a child to abortion. So yeah, we've got a website set up, and we're just working out where else we can get things into with that.
That's brilliant. God, here was me possibly arrogantly thinking I had my finger on most pulses, but not that one. What's the website for that?
I think it's myvoice.nz. Just a second, let me just...
We're going to check. We're live here, people, so to speak. We're finding out.
Yeah, it's myvoice.nz.
Myvoice.nz.
Yeah, so that was set up a while ago, and it's just been hard to try and get that out there a little bit more. It's hard trying to put up billboards around the places I'm sure you guys are aware of. When you're a pro-life organisation. So if anyone has land, you know, that they're willing to put a billboard on, get in touch.
Oh, look, you actually touch on it. It's that political, if not now social environment, which is making this discussion much, much harder. If I was to be generous, it's still a fraught ethical discussion. There are both sides, they've got their reasons and arguments, but it does seem that the ability for pro-life groups like Family First or Voice for Life to actually get our voices out there is getting increasingly difficult. And so possibly a difficult question, but, you know, we talked at the start about political advocacy. I know a lot of your members put a lot of time and effort, rightly, into campaigning against abortion legislation. I mean, how are they feeling since effectively the loss? Do they feel they can still engage into the political space, or do they need further encouragement?
I think people don't really know where to start with the political side of things. As we know, our current Prime Minister doesn't really want to touch the laws as they are. And if a law has just been created, is it going to start changing anytime soon? Probably not. So I guess it's like, where do we start and what should we be doing as pro-lifers? Do you have any suggestions given your experience as a
Yeah. We'll never give up. You used the word earlier, hope, and I think that's a really important virtue to have. I think we can always be hopeful. And so I suppose from my point of view, and be it to your good selves at Voice for Life or anyone else listening, is we just don't give up. I often say to young people, the fight's just as important. Here's a pro-lifer talking with violent connotations, but no, the fight is important whether you win or not. And therefore, you just got to keep going, because we are on the right side of this. Doesn't matter if it's moral, ethical, scientific, human rights based or otherwise. And so we just got to keep going. So practically speaking, I think it's really just, says me to you and anyone listening, it's just about continuing to advocate, to speak like we're doing now, Lydia, to share stories, to share encouragement. And when it comes to the MPs, don't let them get away with it. Bring it up with them. Send them the emails politely. But, be it Voice for Life members, Family First supporters, letting people know that, abortion and euthanasia are important topics to us, and asking the MPs to respond. They might want to think it's a done deal, whether it's Chris Luxon or others, but many of us see it as an ongoing issue.
No, I think changing public perception is really important as well, because the more public that is aware of it, and the more public that is then asking their MPs to push for changes, the greater we're going to get. But I think with that also, like, we should be supporting our MPs and encouraging them to make positive changes, as opposed to sending them hateful emails. I just think we should be using positive reinforcement, because I think we're going to get a lot further with that. So yeah.
Oh, look, I'd agree. If I was to draw from my own experience here, when anyone writes on any topic, doesn't matter what it is, and is in effect very aggressive and abusive, it doesn't really make for change. So certainly my encouragement to pro-lifers is to, write respectfully, as most do anyway. But the other is sometimes, not in all cases, but sometimes the pro-lifers can be harder on pro-life MPs because we're not quite doing it 120% that they want. And so sometimes I must admit you get the hardest flack from people on your own side, which is quite ironic. I'm sure you find that too in your own leadership role.
Exactly. Like, people probably don't like that we're not an abolitionist kind of organisation, but we've also got to be realistic and think about, okay, where do we want to see it in the future, and what steps can we take, in the meantime, to do what we can be doing.
Yeah, well, again, I reflect on what's happening in America, and I suppose I use it because it's quite contemporary at the moment, but actually we are seeing lots of small changes. It's not a complete change or abolition, but actually meaningful changes which will not only help unborn children, but also those mums and dads. So again, that's something to look and be hopeful about.
Exactly. I'm also really interested to see how the changes in Meta and like their misinformation stuff will affect, the likes of our Voice for Life Facebook page and stuff like that. If we'll actually go to start getting more reach again, or who knows, it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Are you suggesting that you actually found, because I'm not au fait with this, that you were finding it difficult to get your messaging out through social media because you're pro-life?
We get very low reach on our posts, and who knows what the reason is for that. We can hypothesize, or else we can continue working on it. We're actually going to be looking for somebody to run our social media this year, so it'll be good to get into the social media world a little bit more too.
Oh, it says me it's the place to be. Now, I asked the question because I found that myself. At times you can, put up pictures of your puppy and your kitten, and the reach is huge. Then you put something up slightly more, what the left or the progressives rather might deem as controversial, and as you say, the reach seems remarkably low. But I'm with you. I think the changes around effectively free speech, allowing people to have a wider opinion is good. In fact, I'd make the argument it's good for all sides. People can put their arguments forward, and Kiwis, in this case, can make their decisions. So on that, it's a good segue actually to help sort of wrap things up. If people do want to follow Voice for Life, if they want to find you guys, say, a website or on Facebook, where do they go?
So we've got our website, which is voiceforlife.org.nz, and we're also on Facebook, so we've got Voice for Life. There's a number of different, branches also have their own Facebook pages. So if you're in a specific region, I also encourage you to follow on a specific branch, because they'll be posting about what projects they're working on or what events you can come along to. So, yeah.
Well, I certainly encourage viewers to do so, because Voice for Life is incredibly active. And as I said at the start, one of the key allies that we work with, well, certainly when I was in Parliament and now in Family First. So look, Lydia, again, congratulations on being the president. There's probably a slight commiserations as well, because it comes with a lot of responsibilities, but really grateful that you are there and leading the organisation. Of course, all the great advocacy that you do.
Thank you so much, Simon.